If your agent doesn't know about this or isn't advising you like this, they are not the right agent. In this market, it's so important to have somebody that's going to help you navigate through and win one of those multi-bid situations. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of your favorite new podcast for real estate. I'm Sammy Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Pesci. Thank you for joining us today. We are in one of our fabulous favorite establishments here on the North Shore of Chicago, who, by the way, serves a killer espresso martini. Cheers, partner.
Cheers.
This is Carson's in Deerfield on Waukegan Road.
Usually when we cheers, we sip.
I know, but I couldn't wait to give some kudos to Carson's.
I already sipped, so I'm good. Carson's at 200 North Waukegan in Deerfield. Spectacular Chicago establishment. Very famous. Why are they famous, Rebecca?
They're famous for ribs. That's how they got started. Known for their ribs. It is a favorite around here. My husband in particular says it has one of the best pork chops he's ever had. For those of you pork chop lovers, I come for the espresso martinis.
Yeah, they're definitely famous for their ribs, for their steaks, for all of their barbecue. And I will say my personal favorite is their cornbread.
Oh.
You get a nice quality loaf of cornbread as you're sipping three espresso martinis. That's usually how I roll.
It also just has a really great vibe in here. I mean, this is known as one of those places you want to go grab a drink, you want to go grab dinner, saddle up to the bar. You're bound to know somebody here. At a minimum, you're getting some great company with the bartenders. So always a crowd favorite here at Carson's.
Yeah, and you can see on the wall here, you got Chicago history, you got athletes, actors, actresses, politicians. They've all hit Carson's when they've been in Chicago.
We can't all be wrong.
There's a reason we're here.
All right, so let's get at it.
Absolutely. All right, so today's episode, we're looking back at 2023, looking ahead to 2024, and we got something a little bit special for you. We have an interview for you.
An interview?
Yep.
An interview. Our very first For Real Estate podcast interview.
So we interviewed the vice presidents of brokerage services and designated managing broker at Properties, Jorge Abreu. He's going to be giving his insight on what happened last year and what may happen this year. So get ready for that.
We brought him on particularly because I say in a very complimentary way, he's a data nerd. I'm a data nerd. I appreciate looking back at information and looking ahead to information and identifying trends. And that is one of the ways in which we as real estate brokers help you, our clients.
And if you listened or watched our last episode, I got on Rebecca's case for being a nerd. You know, she said, oh, I'm a data nerd.
I am.
I just want you to know she's still cool enough to have this podcast with me. So, you know, it's okay. I'll allow it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I would like to say that data is king and powerful in this industry, so don't knock it.
Okay. I'm not knocking it. Okay. So why don't we tell everybody our thoughts about what took place last year
2023
in the real estate industry.
Okay. I'll get started.
Go for it.
Sure. 2023. What can I say? It was a tough year. Right? I think if you're coming off those crazy COVID real estate years where transactions and sales were pouring in, 2023 was quite a different story. And, you know, I had a pretty good year, had some really great business. I would say that here in Chicago was my city clients who really came through for me and kept me alive.
That was cool of them.
Cool of them, right? I had a really great time battling in that traffic all the way to the city. But there's a lot more inventory down there. And that has been the problem for us out here in the suburbs is a lack of inventory. So kudos to all my clients who have hung in there with me all last year. We got some wins. We're looking forward to some wins this year. But you know, like you and I have both been in this business a really long time, so we're used to the ups and downs.
Sure.
We really appreciate those great years, and in the low years, you know, we're definitely not comfortable with it, but we know exactly how to get the business to move forward again, and that there are better days ahead. How about you?
You know, 2023 was the ultimate grind. It really was. And I've been doing this 17 years, just like Rebecca, and it was still one of my top 3 years of my career as far as sales are concerned.
Wow.
But I know.
Good for you.
I'm quite special, I know. I'm going to sit here and pat myself on the back.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Okay, I appreciate that. But it was the ultimate grind. It seemed like every single deal was a battle getting to the finish line. And I think this was the year that buyers started pushing back against sellers a little bit.
Yeah.
Because coming out of COVID, everybody was coming out of their places looking for more space. You know, they saw those walls kind of closing in on them during COVID and magically wanted bigger places. So when they got out there and started looking, they, along with everybody they knew, were looking for a new place. So the sellers that were putting their places on the market had all the power in the world. They put it on and they would get multiple offers left and right.
Well, let's not forget those amazing interest rates that we had during that time too. That
Absolutely.
definitely did not hurt things.
Not at all, without a doubt. So looking at that, over 2021 and 2022, sellers did have so much power because they had all this interest from buyers, okay? Buyers had to sometimes purchase homes as is. They had to pay more than they wanted to. They had to offer the world for the opportunity to negotiate a deal with a given seller, okay? So fast forward to 2023. Buyers were a little tired of dealing with sellers' demands over a 2-year period.
Ugh, join the club.
So once we got under contract, you would find a lot of battles going on following those inspections.
Yeah.
Because these houses weren't perfect, but the sellers were still expecting them to purchase the house as is.
Right, and how many clients did you have where they found themselves in situations in multiple offer, somebody bid and won it, and then it fell out of contract because those buyers started having buyer's remorse.
Absolutely.
So it was a tough year for sellers too. Don't think just because you were a seller you could give your house away.
Right.
It was more important than ever to have a real estate broker advising you on how to manage the market.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so when you got to the finish line of closing, it was a huge accomplishment for all buyers and sellers out there. And it led us to a lot of espresso martinis, naturally, because not only did we want to celebrate, but we needed them after our deals finally got done.
But I don't think other people recognize, if you're not in this industry, I don't think people understand just how much work we really do. Finding the house is just the very top of it, right? Most of what we do happens after a house goes on under contract as a buyer or a seller, and that's really where we shine. So to all you out there who think that anybody could just do this job, it's not true. And even in the best of markets and the best of situations, it's still really important to have someone like us on your side.
And I think one of the things we do other than the actual purchases and sales of these homes, we provide a lot of therapy for our clients.
That's true.
Who constantly call us and text us at all hours of the night. We still love you, don't worry. But yeah, we're providing that emotional support to all of our clients that, you know what, it's going to be okay. We got your back completely. And luckily, we got it to the finish line many times last year.
Right. So on that note, why don't we take a listen to what Jorge had to say about 2023 in a nutshell, his feelings on 2024, and how he celebrates a big win.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are adding yet another fun element to our show, our little podcast here. It's time for the interviews, and we got a great one for you. We would like to thank Jorge Abreu for joining us today. He is the Vice President of Brokerage Services and Designated Managing Broker for At Properties. So, Jorge, thank you so much, and welcome to For Real Estate.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thrilled to be here, guys.
Our first interviewee. We're big leagues now.
That's a lot of
No pressure. No pressure
at all.
at
A lot
all.
of pressure.
That's right. We'll go nice on you. We'll go easy.
All right. We'll see. I'll try to set a high bar for you guys. So all the other guests have a tough time. We'll see.
That's right. I like that enthusiasm.
All right. So, Jorge, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey through real estate, what got you to where you are today, and let the listeners and viewers get to know you.
Sure. Thank you. So like Sammy said, I'm the designated managing broker here on the Chicago North Shore for At Properties. The reality is I don't really have a fully compelling story about how I got in the business. I'll be real. You guys,
that's
keep it
okay.
Real, right? That's your gig. So I started my career in kind of the Big Six, and I know Becky and I have shared that we had some commonality there. The Big Six firm, and first in consulting, and then I was in the recruiting, kind of a campus recruiting world for a while. And then took a turn when we were having our first child back in 1999, which all of a sudden is a really long time ago.
Just a few years ago.
Yeah, no, it's weird. It's, time has flown. My wife and I remember vividly, we were sitting at the dining room table having dinner, just the two of us before we had a baby. And we were talking about the fact that we wanted someone to stay home with the baby. And we kind of did it. And this is 1999, mind you, right? We were kind of going through, we were similar levels career-wise, compensation, et cetera. I worked downtown. She worked 10 minutes away. I was away on weekends sometimes for work. She wasn't. There was all these factors. And when it came down to it, it made more sense. Other than me being the man at the time, it made more sense for me to stay home. So
wow. Progressive.
I'm like, I'll do it. And, being a 6'4", 200-pound male walking around with a baby stroller or a baby carrier back in 99 was not a normal scene. Turned a lot of heads back then. It was kind of a bizarre experience, but it was super rewarding. So not to get too far into that, but we have 3 kids now. I was a stay-at-home dad for a long time, for 10 years. The plan was never to, and I think I was one of the originals. Plan was never to just stay home forever. And so, real estate had been an interest, and just like a lot of people in the industry, it kind of made sense given the situation. I got my license in 2009. The market obviously was not ideal. So I was just kind of dabbling into it, and I wanted to learn the business and see how it went. So I did. I dabbled for a couple of years. 2011, I decided, I'm going to give it a go. At that point, I switched brokerages to where I am now, and I sold for 7 or 8 years before this position was offered to me, and the rest is history, as they say. So hopefully
it's a common theme that Rebecca and I have discussed, is how a lot of agents definitely dabble in this industry before diving in and going full throttle and putting all of their energies into the profession. And I think that's such a common thread, because, that transition from, that full-time paycheck to having enough income where this is truly a career and everything. So we can definitely relate to that.
Although I would argue a little bit that it's a blessing and the curse of this industry, right? You have people who are dabbling, who maybe aren't in it, all the way. Their heart's not totally in it. They don't really know what they're doing. And since they're only dabbling, they're not really motivated to learn it on such a, steep learning curve. So I don't know. I don't begrudge anybody the dabbling, because, we all get here how we get here. But wouldn't it be nice if everybody just sort of jumped in both feet and got started and made it a real thing?
Yeah. I mean,
yes or no?
For sure. That's kind of.
I think it's just tough with people, having needing months of income to cover themselves, and just having that runway to be able to take care of the bills.
Totally.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And then, some people do have more flexibility because they have a partner or spouse who maybe makes enough to pay the mortgage, feed the family, et cetera, et cetera. So some are maybe less or more motivated than others. But I'd like to think that no matter how you come into it, if you at some point want to kind of focus on being successful, you can be, whatever your path is. So that's one of the beauties of the industry, though, is I have to say just the diversity of backgrounds and the paths that people take, and, so many people from so many walks of life or whatever can become successful in this business. So
yeah, it makes it fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I actually did not know a lot of that. And
oh, really?
And I, as one of my fellow pickleball players, I feel like, I know you on a deeper level sometimes. So good for you. I love that. I wish I was a parent in 1999 and saw that for myself.
It was, the cargo shorts with like the bottle in one pocket and the diaper in the other.
That's a hot look, man. That is hot look.
Yeah. No diaper bag for Jorge. He's going straight cargo pants.
You know what? Had I known in college before I was like dating and married that it was such a draw, but such a look. But, you know, at that time it was, you know, not what I was looking for.
That's amazing. All right. Well, one of the big reasons that you came to mind for being on our podcast today is because, like me, you're a big data nerd. And I say that as a compliment because I dive deep into that stuff too. So the impetus for this podcast is a little bit about 2023 in a nutshell. Let's look forward to 2024, right? Of course, you know, big thing, no predictions. We won't call them predictions. We'll call them feelings.
You know how I feel about predictions, right?
That's right. Feelings about 2024 so that no one can call us liars or wrong later. But given your wealth of data knowledge, can you give us a little bit of a recap on 2023 and sort of where you think your feelings about where things are headed in 2024?
Sure, I think so. And I'm not going to get too wonky on the data, but it's all data is all behind it. You know, I try to speak based on facts and not too much on emotion and, like you said, feelings, but I'll take the challenge. So 2023, how would you describe it? I think two ways, right? The first word that comes to mind, it was a grind, right? That's a kind of a baseball term. That's, you know, go grind it out. So I think whether you were a broker, a buyer, or even a seller, to be honest, it was a grind. It was a challenging and tough year, right? Brokers, obviously, it was a big shift from the previous 2-3 years, the unicorn years, as we like to call them. And so, you know, the inventory challenges, et cetera, from a buyer perspective, you know, working with buyers and having a difficult time actually getting a property for them, even if you work 3 times as hard as you'd worked before for someone, maybe. Mm-hmm. From a buyer perspective, we know what the grind was there, right? The challenge of inventory. You think you find a house. I love this house. I'm going to put a great offer in. And guess what? You're 5th in line because there's several other offers. They're cash. They don't need a mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. So a grind for them. And then on the seller side, I feel like it was, you know, a little different here. It's a grind in the fact that people felt stuck. Right. I mean, we've talked about Rebecca in our meetings about the kind of the unintended consequences of the interest rate hikes. Right. It was like, let's slow things down. Let's kind of handle affordability or get a hold of affordability. And all of a sudden it became this like, well, no one's going to give up all their mortgages that they've refinanced to over the last 2-3 years. I'm not going to give up 3% to go to 8% or 7%. So it created kind of this traffic jam. Right. Buyers are still interested. Sellers are like, so it's a grind because in terms from a seller's perspective, you felt, I bet a lot of sellers felt stuck.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to move or it's time to move, but, you know, I'm going to do the math and this doesn't make sense. I'm going to just hang here.
Or I have nowhere to go.
Or you have nowhere to go. Right. Even though you're ready from a life perspective to make a move. Right. So I would call it a grind is my first word. But then from another perspective, I think it was also an adjustment year, a kind of a transition. We talked about the last 2-3 years prior to that being the unicorn years, right? The pandemic takeoff, prices, sales, et cetera, et cetera. And this was, you know, a lot of people at the end of 2022 feared the bubble. Remember all the conversations we had and all the articles you'd see about, is the bubble going to burst? Is the bubble going to burst? And we were saying, there's no bubble. There's no bubble. And sure enough, there wasn't a bubble, right? Circumstances were very different than the mid 2000s. And so I was talking at a meeting yesterday about instead of a bubble, remember when you used to let air out of a balloon and it used to make that squeaking sound? You just kind of pulled. Do you remember that?
I remember.
It was a little bit.
Here, I got a balloon right here. Let's see what it sounds like.
Can we demonstrate, Sammy, please?
Absolutely. Give me one sec. I'm sorry.
Flexibility with that. So it was a little more of that, right? Like, yes, demand probably pulled back some with the interest rates and affordability reaching a level that a lot of people just kind of hit the sidelines. But the bigger impact was on the supply side. It just wasn't enough. And so there was still plenty of demand to meet the supply, way too much demand for the supply. And so that's why we didn't see prices drop. We saw prices level. We saw this, a lot less sales, but not because people didn't want to buy. Saw a lot less sales because there wasn't enough to sell or to buy. So I think it was I'm hopeful that it was kind of a reset of kind of getting from the madness of 2020 through 2022 into a more, so I'm going to call it back to normal, with the caveat that normal is no longer what we used to think of as normal. Does that make sense?
A new normal.
It's the new normal, right? I mean, we talked about the grind. It's going to be a grind for a while, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my thoughts on 2023. Hopefully they weren't too long, but
I think they're great thoughts. A grind and an adjustment year.
Yeah. All right, good.
Both at the same time.
So I think, let's look at it like a bit of a transition year, adjustment period. Now, 2024, how do I feel about it? I'm going to go with hopeful and optimistic. I think I talked about this at our first meeting. I joked that I'd been faking optimism for the last 3-4 years to make everyone feel good.
I would imagine that's a common theme in your role for sure. Is I would imagine you just always have to be that cheerleader. Motivate the troops and everything. We as brokers naturally have to do it for our clients, and you do the same for all of your agents and brokers.
That's right. Yeah, no, at the same time, you want to be honest and you want to be realistic. But I think you always have to kind of keep that spark of optimism in there. Too easy to go the other way and then things go sideways. So what am I thinking of 2024? Like I said, optimistic and hopeful, but I think a new normal. Hopefully now people are kind of like aware of what they have to deal with, because I feel like in 2023 we're like just waiting. Rates are going to come down and everything's going to kind of open up, and that's where predictions. I vowed not to do any more predictions about midway through the year. Remember, Rebecca?
Yes, I do.
Because it was like rates are going to come down, all this stuff, and then it was like that's not happening. So my thought on 2024 is like, let's work with what we have. Right? Things might change, things might whatever, but let's work with what we have. We're going to have a low inventory environment for a while. I don't see that changing. Prices, I think there's a potential that based on what we're seeing early in the year, a couple of anecdotally, I guess I would say, there's a potential that prices spike a little bit because they've been kind of flat for last year, right? There's still some pent up demand from last year. There's the new set of buyers coming in this year. We ended the year with a ridiculous number of homes. And then I mean that there were no homes available at the end of the year. I sent a meme or like a little GIF to, is it GIF or GIF? It's GIF, I think.
I have no idea.
I don't know. But
we know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The thing, the picture that moves. And it's fun. I sent a thing with, it was the John Travolta in Pulp Fiction. And so I think it was done during COVID, and there's he does this kind of what's going on?
Yeah, that weird dance.
Like empty shelves. I think it was it was created during COVID with the whole toilet paper thing, and it's but it was empty shelves, and it's that's literally we're starting 24 with nothing on the shelves. So it'll be interesting. So I think prices could spike because any good house that comes on, there's a lot of buyers still willing to go for it. Rates coming down, they feel there's a little more affordability. Is that sustainable? I don't think we're going into this price curve environment long term, maybe for a little while, and then it flattens because there's other factors involved, but no predictions, so we'll see.
Do you think seasonality is going to be a factor this year, or is it going to not really matter? Because I feel like we're seeing the market get a little bit of an early jump this year, and the Chicago area has been so cold, but that really hasn't seemed to slow things down from what I can tell.
No, I think that's actually a great question, and something I was going to talk about with the 2023. I feel like we saw a little bit of seasonality coming back to the market in 23 that we hadn't seen the previous 3 years. Because the previous 3 years, it was just go all year long, right? Until the end of 22. I think we've started to see a little bit of seasonality back. I think the whole seasonality of the spring has always been somewhat of a myth. I think the spring market starts January 1st, depending on the year. Like, so from January through May or whatever, that's the spring market, right? I think it's, the cold is not as much of an effect as it has in previous years before the pandemic. Remember, we used to wait. It's too cold.
Right.
It's spring break, the Super Bowl, spring break, whatever, the holidays, et cetera, et cetera. We always had excuses, but that was really because the market was not as strong. So I think we're seeing an early start because there's plenty of demand out there. And I don't think people who were in the market at the end of last year are doing the usual, like, let's wait and see what else comes on. Something comes on, they're going to hop on it. So we'll see what seasonality looks. I mean, I think the levels of inventory will tell whether there's real seasonality or not. I just don't see inventory levels building up significantly anytime soon because there's so pent up demand, unless something significant happens. That's my thought on that.
Yeah, I would say as far as seasonality, when it comes down to it, in the past, we saw a lot of families want to move during the summer, get established for a new school year. And I would say coming out of COVID, when everybody was just at home, looking around, wanting more space and everything, finding that new great property was the priority. Right. So over the last couple of years with such limited inventory, we're finding that people are jumping on those properties no matter when they come on the market because they're so eager to find themselves with a little bit more space in a, shall we say, better town. You never know. At the same time, if it happens in January, if it happens in March or May, it really doesn't matter because they got to jump on it. And that magic house may not be there to get their kids established for a new school district with the perfect timing during the summer.
Yeah, no, that's right. That kind of August deadline for people with family, with kids looking for school, et cetera, I think that's gone away or kind of grayed a little bit. But yeah, so that's my thought on 2024.
Some good thoughts.
For the most part.
Some good thoughts.
Thank you.
So, Jorge, what kind of advice would you give to, let's say, newer agents that are coming on the scene right now? And it is, somewhat of a challenging time for agents to get into this industry with the limited number of deals that are being made based on the inventory.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the first thing for a new agent is to be realistic, right? I think the perception of what real estate is, and I hate to keep referring back to the last 2-3 years, but I'm going to keep referring back to the last 2-3 years because they've had quite an impact on our industry, is, the whole, like, it's easy kind of thing came back, right? It's easy to be a realtor. You just, whatever. You just walk out the door and there's people looking for houses and you help them and
come on down. Let's go.
No problem, right? I think people have to come in, you were talking about if you need to make the paycheck to pay the mortgage and all that kind of stuff, you have to, come in with a plan or with some backup because it could take a while. Right now, like Highland Park is an example. There were 36 single family homes on the market at the end of December. So we started the year with 36 houses, right? How many agents are in Highland Park?
A lot.
Couple hundred, right? I mean, in years past, if you look at the average over 15 years, here you go, Rebecca, I'm going to throw in some data.
Yes.
Right? If you look back over 15-year history and you said, how many houses are in Highland Park on December 31st, generally, you'd say on average about 250.
Wow.
And that's numbers. I've actually run those numbers.
I've seen it.
36. You've seen it.
I've seen it.
There's 36 houses on the market. And like I said, empty shelves. But, that's terrible from a buyer perspective. It's also very challenging as a broker who's trying to make a living,
I just think we should have like a national sell your house day. Like, okay, March 1st, if you're interested in selling your house or you want to buy a house, everybody 1, 2, 3, jump and let everything shuffle out and see how it works.
And here's where the cocky side of me that says every day is National Sell Your House Day.
Oh, look at that guy.
For that. I would love for that to be the case, but you have all these, they feel stuck to your sales, right? And you're like, okay, but they would be great sellers if they had a buyer. And it's just, we need to sort of cross-reference everybody and let everybody land where they want to land, but everyone's afraid to do it.
Yeah, but I think
a lot of listing appointments in one day. I mean,
yeah, that's right. That's a challenge. That's a lot of printing out of the office.
We can do it.
Well, but that, to your point, I think that's one of the things we've been talking about at our office is, from a broker perspective is, I think I made a slide that said we have to be market makers, not order takers, right?
Right.
A lot of brokers, you do work your network, your relationships. We believe that's where business should come from.
Right.
But I think a lot of people have kind of, given the circumstances over the last few years, I would even say, have kind of shut the door a little bit to any sort of change, any sort of move. The news are scary. We've talked a lot, Rebecca, about headlines and what, we live in this real estate bubble and we have a different perspective than what someone who's not living real estate every day. They just see the headline in the New York Times and it's not a great headline. And maybe it's not even accurate to what we're seeing in this market. And so I think we have to do a really good job in a market like this of making sure that the general public understands what the market is and what the opportunities may be out there.
Yeah.
And so that's what we work on every week, right? Like just not arming ourselves. And it's not like we go out there and do a hard sell, but I was using the example of myself and I was joking. Remember I said, I'm not moving. But as I hear of some of these, my kids are all now grown, they're in school. I think I know what my house is worth. I know what my equity is, but then as I start hearing what some of these other houses are selling for, and I'm hearing what's going on around the country and whatever, like the wheels start spinning, right? I mean, I'm getting to an age where over the next few years, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but the wheels are starting to spin, which they haven't been spinning for a few years because we've just kind of been like, close the door and we're staying pat. So I think it's our responsibility, again, not to sell or not to push, but to keep the general public informed and for them to understand what the opportunities or possibilities may be.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? It's not a hard sell. It's just, and then so I saw an article the other day. The last line was 2024 is the year where life happens, which I loved. So that's another prediction for 2024. I think we've talked about that. Some of the people who, were worried about rates and this and that, at some point you decide to make a move or whatever, because you just need to make the change. Whatever the circumstances may be, because life happens.
Because life.
Yeah. In a good way. I'm not even right. I'm not talking about the 3Ds or whatever, the bad stuff.
No, just because everyone's moving on, right? Moving on, living life.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. So,
all right. So we have one very important final question for you. All right. So Rebecca and I share our mutual love of espresso martinis, and sometimes we drink them to celebrate, real estate accomplishments, and often just the fact that we're out and about. When you have a big win, let's say it's a personal win, it's something, your office, accomplishments, whatever, what's the best way you celebrate a big win, either professionally or personally?
Good question. So I guess wins are a little different now. It's almost like I live vicariously through my kids and I'm not going to call my agents my kids, but in a way they are. So I was going to just say it's super rewarding to see success on their end. But in terms of like celebrating, I know when I used to sell and whatever, I had a closing, it was always like, let's go out to, generally revolves around food, unfortunately, if you can't tell. Going out to a nice meal, and it's not even have to be a big fancy meal, but a nice meal. And as my kids have gotten older, and we've had the opportunity to have, whenever they're home or whenever we had a couple of graduations this year, there's a lot going on with them that I'm super excited for and happy about. And so we celebrate with just a nice family meal. We go out to a restaurant, and there's nothing that makes me happier and more like at peace and calm than being with my wife and my 3 kids, sharing a nice meal and maybe a drink or 2 for myself. But
Very cool.
But it's great. So I think I would say just, celebrate with a nice meal.
Do your kids
I'll have to try one of those martinis though. What's that?
Do your kids have a go-to place? Like if I know they're out and about, living in different places, that they come home and be like, I really want to go to dinner here. I miss this place. Or they don't care?
Really? No, they don't care. It's funny though, like my oldest, we're getting an aside. My oldest, who's the clarinet player, who we thought was the one who would like least care about stuff and nice things and whatever, like that kid truly appreciates a good dinner. And it's just the funniest thing. Like he really appreciates like nice stuff and a nice dinner and a good glass of wine.
It's funny. They just kind of come out the way they're kind of born a certain way, right?
For sure. So, can't wait for the next one, to be honest with you.
Well, the next time we have a big one, we'll invite you out. We'll get you an espresso martini.
I've never had one. So
get ready. That's all I'm going to say.
I've never had one. So
keep listening to these podcasts and we'll show you where to go.
Okay. So here's another prediction for 2024.
Uh-oh.
I will drink my first espresso martini.
Yes.
How's that?
Love it. Can we be there?
To all of our viewers, you see what we're doing. We're creating this wonderful appreciation for the old EM. Gotta love it.
We're turning people into espresso martini drinkers, one interviewee at a time.
Love it. Well, Jorge, thank you.
Try it. I didn't vow to like it, but go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. Just wanted to thank you so much again for joining us. Really provide some valuable insight to all of our listeners and viewers. And we'll see if those feelings you have for 2024 come to fruition. But thanks again. Really appreciate your time.
We'll see, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun and continued success.
Sounds great. Thank you.
See you guys soon. Thanks, guys.
All right, that was some great insight from Jorge, wasn't it?
For sure.
I was surprised to hear just how lean inventory is. I know that we feel it, right, when you're working in the business, but again, the data, I'm a data nerd, right? 36 homes on the market at the end of December when historically we have about 250. Those
That's
numbers.
like 15% of usual inventory. That is crazy.
All right, math teacher. Ran that number in your head real fast.
Nerd-like tendencies.
So who's the data nerd now?
This guy.
Right, that guy. But still, that was shocking to me because you feel it, but until you see the numbers, you don't realize just how bad it is in inventory. I want to say bad, how lean it is in inventory. Right. So looking ahead at 2024, I think we're going to see more of the same. What do you think?
On January 2nd, my phone started ringing. And it hasn't stopped. You have all this pent-up demand from everybody that was out there thinking, you know what, we're going to look at houses next year when the interest rates go down. Well, after being close to 8%, here we are. They're under 7%, and a lot of people are out and about looking for new homes. But as Jorge mentioned, and as we just talked about, that inventory is quite lean. So looking ahead, you have all this pent-up demand. Combine these new buyers with everybody that couldn't find a house last year and the year before. That means there's going to be incredible competition out there to get these houses when they come on the market. And what happens, Rebecca, when there's a lot of competition between buyers?
Oh.
Pop quiz.
Multiple offers.
Multiple offers. And then if you get multiple offers, what happens to those sales prices?
They go up.
Very good.
Oh, God.
She's been listening.
I didn't know there was a quiz today. Woo!
She's so smart. It's that MBA education.
That's
what can
right.
I say?
That's right.
All right. So yes, you are going to see prices probably go up a bit based on those bidding wars. So for all those people that we have mentioned in previous episodes who think the market's just going to crash, good luck. It's just not going to happen.
Not here, anyway. It's just not. And you know what's so wild is to think about that under 7 is low. It's all relative, right? But under 7 is low. Whereas coming out of COVID, I had buyers who are like, oh, they're going up, they're so high, they're at 6%, they're at 7%, that's so high. And now we're like, oh, they fell under 7, they've lowered. I mean, perspective and is everything. Timing is everything. And we're not going to see those super low interest rates again, like ever. 2, 3, 4%. If you didn't get on top of that, forget it. It's over. 6%, 7%, that's where you live. So just accept it, get on with your life, and buy a house if you want to.
It is amazing, though, how people that were looking at the rates around 8, and now that they've come down below 7, those people that are being prisoner of the moment naturally are jumping on it and thinking, oh my God, that is such a significant drop.
Yeah.
But of course, everybody that got their mortgage in the 3s or 2.75, they're going to be those people that say, get off my lawn, because they're going to be thinking back to the day when everything was different.
Right. So what does this mean for all of you that's out there, right? If you're buyers, if you're investors, what that means for you is 2024 is more of the same. Get ready, right? Make sure that you are prepared. Make sure if you are a loan borrower that you've got all your ducks in a row, right? You are ready. You're pre-approved. You've given them everything that you need. So you're ready to buy that house. Be competitive. If you're cash, even better. But again, I know I harp on this all the time, but you have to rely on your trusted real estate brokers, because this market, every market, really requires some finesse and someone who's in it and has the expertise. You need somebody on your side. So make sure you're prepared, have somebody in your corner, and buckle up. Okay,
so for all of you that once again think that you have a family friend that knows the industry, you refer to them, and you see that they have only done a few deals over the last couple of years, they are not going to be able to guide you through the process of finding a home in this market. You need to go with people that have won multiple bid situations, that know how to navigate it, and use strategies such as, here we go, opening the curtain here, offering to purchase the house as is, and truly knowing what that means. Using escalation clauses, using appraisal gap addendums. These are all strategies that have helped us win those multiple bid situations over the last couple of years. If your agent doesn't know about this or isn't advising you like this, they are not the right agent. I'm not saying we're the only ones, because there are so many other agents that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But again, in this market, it's so important to have somebody that's going to help you navigate through and win one of those multi-bid situations.
And here in Illinois, we're an attorney state. So here's a plug for those attorneys out there. And for you buyers or sellers who'd like to use a referral for your friends, uncles, cousins, attorney, if they're not doing residential real estate transactions as the bread and butter of their business, please do not use them, right? You would not go to a podiatrist to fix your heart, right? You'd go to a cardiologist. So if you...
Did you ever go see a podiatrist?
I've never seen...
Accidentally?
I've never seen a podiatrist or a cardiologist, for that matter.
I'm very glad you're healthy.
No, thank you. But I will tell you, if you are a buyer or seller, you find a real estate, residential real estate, not commercial, not industrial, a residential real estate attorney who can help you, because again, now more than ever, you need people in your corner who do this for a living. So if you don't have somebody, again, that's where we come in. We can provide you with some trusted resources for residential real estate attorneys that can help you through that.
And the good news is most of these residential real estate attorneys are going to charge one flat fee for the entire transaction.
Hear that?
Versus...
Hear that? Say that one more time for the people in the back.
They are going to charge one flat fee for the entire transaction versus other attorneys in different fields that are going to charge you by the hour. So you may pay a residential real estate attorney, let's say anywhere from $300 to $1,000, let's just say, for example.
Sure.
If somebody's charging you hourly,
oh, look at an $1,800 bill by the time everything is said and done.
Good luck.
All right, so I think we've belabored the point here.
Yes.
Find your trusted advisors, attorneys, realtors, what have you. Buckle up for another 2024 that's similar to 2023.
What about sellers?
Well, same news goes for you. Please find trusted advisors. Please again, do the math. We've talked about this before too, but we've got sellers who are thinking, hey, I've got 3% on my home. Why would I trade that for 8? Well,
make sure you have a place to go before you sell your place, because once you put your place on the market, if it's priced correctly, odds are you are going to get offers on your place. But then you need to make sure you have a place to go. Otherwise, you are going to be breaking a contract. You are going to be trying to modify that closing date and making your prospective buyer not too happy.
But here's the other piece of it. I'm just going to throw this as a really simple equation because I feel like I have this conversation all the time.
Go for it.
Let's say you have a home, you're at 3%, your house is worth $600,000, okay? You don't need that space anymore. Your taxes are at $10,000. You want to try to downsize a little bit. All right, so sure, you're trading that 3% mortgage, let's call it for 7, right? I'll be conservative. Sure. But you're paying 7% on a $300,000 place where the taxes are half as much now, and the upkeep and the utilities. So sure, the interest rates are not the same, but your total cost of ownership is what changes. And it drives me crazy when people are like, why would I trade 3% for 7%? Because it's more than just your interest rate. So stop listening to the headlines. Stop listening to the sensationalism that's out there. Call one of us. I can't believe I keep belaboring this point, but call somebody if you're really thinking about it, because the truth is it might work in your best interest.
How else can they get in touch with us?
Oh, that's a really great question.
Segue.
Tell them.
Okay. If you have a question about what's going on in the market, you're looking for advice, whether you're a buyer or a seller, whether you are an agent that's looking for some guidance, you can hit us up at forrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. That's FOR realestatepodcast@gmail.com. Before we close up shop, just want to touch on maybe 2 quick things. First of all, for you investors out there this year, there is going to be a lot more competition for those flippable properties out there. Mm-hmm. So again, just be patient. It's going to be so much competition. So again, you're going to find those bidding wars. We'll see what happens in the next few years. But this year, it's going to be challenging to find those great properties because people are going to be bidding them up. And lastly, for you newer agents out there who are trying to navigate this market, which is going to be incredibly similar to 2023, you got to hustle. You got to get your name out there as much as possible. Feel free to spend money like we've talked about in the past. You are an entrepreneur. It is not going to come easy to you. You got to learn. This is a great time to learn. Use social media. That is free advertising for you. And do everything you can to become that trusted advisor like we have become in this industry.
That's right. A lot of really great information on this podcast, Sammy. I can't wait for the next one.
Where are we going to be?
I don't know. We might be at another really great establishment that serves an espresso martini. We might be in Arizona, where we also are licensed and partner up and do business. You know, really, we could be anywhere. But the point is, if you like, subscribe, rate, follow us, you're going to be one of the first to know. So again, if you own, work at, or know of a place that has a phenomenal espresso martini, either in the Chicagoland area or in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, make sure you hit us up once again for realestatepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, guys. See you next time.
We'll see ya.
That was some great insight from Jorge, wasn't it? I mean, I was surprised.
Or we could start over. She's just trying to do
surprised.
outtakes herself.
I was surprised.
No, keep it. Our video editors know what they're doing, right?
Sorry. All right, let's try.
And
okay.
She's back.
I'm back. Magic.
Okay. Sound like Donkey Kong.
Okay.
You ready for this thing?
I'm ready. Do we know what we're saying?
No.
Okay.
That's why we roll.
That's where we're a 2-take team.
2 takes. Crazy.
All right, math teacher. Ran that number in your head real fast.
Nerd like 10.
So who's the data nerd now?
This guy.
Right, that guy. Michael's making magic happen.
Shake it up, baby. Shake it up.
Here we go. Cold for you. Yes, cold espresso martinis. Look at that. Oh, so pretty. Right to the top.
We
Yes.
we may just cancel the podcast and just, drink.
Oh, what's that on the top?
This is ground cinnamon that we add for some flavor.
Little ground cinnamon. Secret weapon. Love it. Love it. And here comes my second martini.
Wait a minute.
Just kidding. I'll share. Oh, God, is that pretty.
Always a very healthy pour at Carson's.
That's why we love it here. Ooh, don't forget the cinnamon. Gorgeous.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.